Welcome to the meeting of the Board of Governors of the State of California Community College System. We are in session, and we will now break for a tour of the Riverside City College campus, Community College campus, and we will return at 1 p.m. with the regular agenda. We appreciate Superintendent Isak and President Anderson leading us on our tour today and setting up this beautiful facility for us. We're really disappointed we didn't fill all the seats, but maybe tomorrow. I guess we're not being controversial enough. But
we can work on that.
Yeah, we maybe by the time Calbrate is up, we'll fill the place. So with that, though, that's all I had. I want to turn it over to the Chancellor.
Yes, thank you, Board President Epstein. I also want to thank Dr. Isak and Dr. Anderson for the warm welcome, and in particular, I want to thank the faculty, staff, and the great students of Riverside City College for allowing us to mess with your schedules while we're here, and for hearing from all of you and the great welcome that all of us felt on your wonderful campus. I also want to welcome and congratulate our new board members as well. Thank you for volunteering your time, your energy, and your great talent to the greatest system of higher education in the nation, the California Community Colleges. So thank you to the three of you for the work that lies ahead and for bringing your expertise to this table and to our great system. I want to just do a couple of highlights and make a couple of comments. First, I want to thank the entire Lake Tahoe Community College community who allowed us to spend some time with them last week. Thank you to Board Member Perigo for joining us on the listening tour at Lake Tahoe Community College. They're doing a fabulous job of serving their community, and we were very excited to hear about all the great things that they're doing. So I want to thank that entire team, that entire community for the warm welcome that they gave us last week. The next two sites that we will visit are Cerritos College and Santa Barbara City College. So we look forward to those listening tours. And of course, as always, if any members of the Board of Governors want to join us in those tours, you're more than welcome to come with us. Since the last time that we met, Governor Gavin Newsom announced the creation or the formation of a council for post-secondary education. I want to thank the governor for including the California Community Colleges on that council for post-secondary education. We look forward to working with him and his team to carry out some of his vision for higher education in California, which I know he's talked a lot about it, the cradle to career goals that he has, but no other system of higher education in California is more closely aligned with that vision than the California Community Colleges. We saw a lot of the cradle to career pipeline here at Riverside City College, so we look forward to working with the governor as well as all the other leaders of the systems of higher education in California. I do want to make a comment specifically to our immigrant students. We issued a statement not too long ago regarding public charge rules. I want to reiterate that the Chancellor's Office and the Board of Governors are committed to maintaining safe, and welcoming environments across our entire system of higher education, where all students have access to an education free of fear and intimidation. We want to remind students not to be deterred from applying for financial aid. So again, we're going to continue to repeat this message. We want all of our students to have access to every resource that is available to them, including our immigrant population. The Department of Homeland, thank you. Just to finish off, the Department of Homeland Security, the changes that are set to go into effect on October 15th, again, all students, regardless of their immigration status, we repeat, are welcome at any one of our 115 colleges. So we will continue to share that messaging, and we'll continue to work with all of our colleges to ensure that all the information necessary to help our students go to college and be successful in college is available to them. The legislature finalized their sprint toward the end of the first year of the two-year legislative session. We did have some important wins in that final week. Most importantly, AB 48, which now authorizes the state of California to place a ballot measure on the March 2020 ballot that will allow for voters of the state of California to vote for a bond measure, a construction bond measure, for all of higher education, including K-12. For the California community colleges, it means $2 billion of new construction dollars for our colleges. So we look forward to working with everyone to get the word out to all of our communities throughout California about how important it is for that bond measure to pass, particularly for colleges like Riverside City College. A couple of other important highlights. One, we continue to implement the student-centered funding formula. And we've heard a lot of concerns across the state about the student-centered funding formula. Many of those concerns relate to the fact that in this last year, the state of California could not fully fund the formula. And while that has been an area of concern for our colleges over the years because of the challenges that the state budget has in times of constrained revenues, we continue to press for fully funding all of our colleges. And in this year's budget ask, we continue to ask for more money for base funding for all of our colleges. We feel that this is a critical time for the state of California to invest as many resources as possible in helping colleges like Riverside City College fully fund its per-student funding. So we will continue to press for that. We look forward to working with everyone to ensure that our colleges are fully funded. And the other thing I would say is that while it is a difficult transition to go from the previous funding formula to the new funding formula, we continue to work with both the legislature and with the oversight committee that was designated by the legislature to find ways to ensure that the formula can be implemented with as much fidelity as possible, but also ensuring that the needs of our students throughout our 115 colleges are addressed in that formula. So we will continue to work and continue to try to ensure that there's stability in the formula, but also that it helps all of our colleges support the populations that they serve throughout this great state. And then finally, I want to put in a plug for the Vision for Success Summit, which will be held on April 27th and 28th in Irvine. We've sent out a save the date for that event. This will allow us a chance to really come together as an entire system to talk about how we're doing in advancing the vision for success and doing the great work that colleges like Riverside are doing to close the equity gaps that exist. So we look forward to seeing everybody in April for the Vision for Success Summit, and you'll get more information from us in the near future. And then finally, I want to give a quick welcome to folks who will be speaking to the Board of Governors from Peralta Community College District. I want to emphasize how important this moment is for us as a system, and particularly for the Peralta Community College District and any college district that has had challenges with its fiscal management over the last few years. We want to ensure that Peralta and all of our districts do everything possible and have the resources necessary to serve the needs of their community. So I'm sure the board will have many questions for the Peralta board, but I can assure you that this Chancellor's office will do everything possible to support the board and the administration, the students, the faculty, and staff of Peralta. We want to ensure that the students of that community have all the resources necessary, have the right fiscal management in place to ensure the viability of that district so that all the needs of those students can be served. So I look forward to that conversation with our friends from Peralta, and that's all I have.
Great. So next item is item 1.1, the consent calendar approval, and I want to thank Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez for having no contracts for us to approve today. That made our preparation a lot more fun.
Good afternoon, Board President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, Board members, Chancellor Oakley. Item 1.1 combines your July board meeting minutes. And then you also have item 1.2, which is the request for waiver of statutes related to lease property for San Bernardino City Community College District. Those are both standard items in front of you. And typically we do not have a presentation on consent items.
So moved.
Moved by Member Costa and seconded by Member Aguinaldo. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? Okay. The consent calendar is approved. Moving on to item 2.1, the approval of contracts and grants. Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez.
Right, so item 2.1, you only have one contract in front of you. It is a new contract for an interjurisdictional exchange, very similar to a contract that you approved in September of 2018, so just last year at your offsite meeting. This specific 2-year interjurisdictional exchange is to hire an assistant vice chancellor for the WED division, Workforce and Economic Development Division.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Member Anderson, Member Rawlings. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? Okay, the motion's approved.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, item 2.2, credit for prior learning regulation changes. Executive Vice Chancellor Marty Alvarado.
Good afternoon. This item was brought to the board in was brought to the board in May of 2019 following a comprehensive work group that launched in June of 2018 to update and expand the regulations for credit for prior learning. We bring this to you today for second reading, final approval. After this was brought in May, there were a few amendments that this board requested. We went back, made those amendments, opened it up for public comment. Actually, you should have a copy of the public comments in your packets. All have been attended to. And the credit for prior learning, the purpose of it was really to strengthen the opportunities for our students, the number of students who have access to this type of resource.
President Haynes.
So my question goes to, I think this is long overdue, so I'm really glad that we're at this stage in the approval process. But as I read this, I was wondering to what extent, had we had this, would it have applied to a number of adult learners who had been in for-profit, and when they came to us, all of that was sort of put to the side, and they either had to start over relative to our course programs that there was some parallel to. Would this now help those students?
Yes, while the initial intent is focused on military, it is actually expanded so that it can accommodate all adult learners, whether they come from the for-profits and are transitioning over and want to bring those skill sets and receive credit for them, or whether we're talking about individuals who have gone through industry-related training out in their profession.
So I want to extend the question to a particular student that I had the chance to hear his story. He was trained as a registered nurse outside of the country, in another country of origin. His training, very young, so his training was immediate. It was in the last year. He relocated to California. He got a certificate in his country of origin, but based on, I'm not certain, sort of prior how we do things, he had to start all over again. Would this help that kind of student, or not? I mean, there's a testing and there's an assessment, but I'm trying to get an idea of sort of who's in and who may not be.
Right. I would say yes, but no, but no, but yes. Just because understanding that our medical departments have a lot of regulations that they have to attend to. So I think what we're really trying to emphasize is the purview of the faculty to design credit for prior learning opportunities that really meet the needs of the industry, to ensure that the students are able to translate those credits earned into either transfer or employment. So potentially, but again, it's at the purview of the discipline faculty.
Thank you.
Grande.
Thank you. I am a huge advocate for competency-based education and credit for prior learning, and I want to give huge accolades to bringing this before us. I just have two questions, though. The first one deals with a bullet point on page 18 that says it places more of a burden on institutions. What level of a burden are we looking at for those institutions?
Right. I think the burden that we're talking about is really ensuring that students have access to the information so that they are aware that these opportunities exist. So first and foremost, just making sure that institutions have publicly facing information around the types of credit for prior learning opportunities that are available. And then also the burden is on institutions and departments and divisions, sort of building on that last question, to ensure that they have thought about what are the appropriate vehicles for assessing portfolios or prior learning.
Then that goes to my second question, which comes on page 22 on section 55050, and this is going to end up being the new sub-I that indicates a district may charge a student a fee for administering an examination, but it strikes the assessment. So only those that are going to be credit by exam will pay a fee, but if they're doing any other prior learning assessment, they would not be assessed a fee.
That is correct, and that was the recommendation of this board. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Grande, Member Rawlings. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. On to 2.3, the proposed change to extended opportunities and service regulations. Again, Executive Vice Chancellor Alvarado.
So this item was brought to this board in July after working with the EOPS leadership. The intent, and actually after working with our legal team at the Chancellor's office, the intent was around strengthening the language that clarifies eligibility for AB 540 students as eligible to receive EOPS services. We felt that the language could be strengthened so that there was no doubt that those students were eligible to receive these services.
Yes,
So just to clarify, EOPS is basically on board with all of this as well?
Yes, yeah, we worked with their leadership team, had a number of calls, extended calls, particularly with advocates for the AB 540 population. And then they had an opportunity to review the draft language and weigh in, so absolutely.
Yeah, and how did you hear a lot of complaints before this moved forward? I wasn't privy to prior conversations, so just curious kind of
Right.
what triggered this.
Yeah, it was during a standard review of the current policies by our legal team at the Chancellor's office when we realized that the language could be interpreted as excluding AB 540 students. We made proposed recommendations to adjust that language. There wasn't concerns that had surfaced from the field, but I think there was a lot of appreciation, given the climate that we're in, to really ensuring that there was no question mark around AB 540 eligibility for the program.
I understand what,
Yeah, I
Okay.
just have a question.
Vice President Haynes.
So in the, I don't know, under the background, there's a statement as in terms of the EOPS services, as long as the number of financial aid awards received by California residents from the same financial aid program is not or will not be diminished as a result. So are AB 540 students put at the back of the line, or how will that work is sort of my question.
Right. I think it works fairly differently at each campus. Each campus is really working to ensure that they're meeting the needs of their full populations. And then our office is working with the different programs to try to strengthen supports for AB 540 students. So I think it varies. I think across the board, all EOPS programs would say they could use more resources to support the numbers of students, but they are doing their best to serve AB 540 students comprehensively.
Okay, so just a, so I'm just gonna say this. I just want to make certain that our AB 540 students get the services that they need. And I recognize that California residents are California residents. But I think if indeed there are challenges around resources of not being able to serve this population, it seems to me that somebody needs to come back and say, this is what we need to do in order to make certain that we're serving all of the populations that are the most vulnerable here in California. So I understand the language, but I also want to make certain that we know who's being served, how well they're being served, and who's left out of that process.
I will take that back. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I understand we have some public comment?
We do. I'm going to bring both of you up at the same time. Dr. Debbie Klein from FACT and Larry Galizio.
Through door number 1.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Debbie Klein, and I am the new president of FACT, the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges. And it's an honor and a privilege to be here today. And it's my first time being at one of your meetings. So FACT just wanted to say that you may know that we've been a partner with EOPS for 21 years. And EOPS is currently celebrating its 50th year anniversary this year. And we just hosted a 50th year anniversary celebration in Sacramento, and it was attended by Assembly Member Jose Medina from Riverside here, and many other EOPS supporters. And FACT wants to express our appreciation for the inclusion or the clarification of the inclusion of AB 540 students in Title V regs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Apologies, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Chancellor Oakley, members. My penmanship is so bad that actually I want to comment on 2.6 and 2.9, so this will be the shortest. However, I would echo the comments, and this is important work, and we'll be back in 3 other items.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion on item 2.3?
So moved. Second.
Well, Anderson and Rawlings are quick today.
We love this guy.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 2.4, regulations concerning funding for districts experiencing emergencies. Vice Chancellor Osmena.
Thank you very much. This item concerns the adoption of regulations related to districts who have experienced an emergency that would affect their funding. This is the 3rd time these regulations have been presented to the board. This version is no different than the version that was presented to the board in July. We received 1 additional public comment after the July meeting related to districts who were affected by public safety power shutdowns, which has been a recent occurrence. We think that issue likely needs additional review, and so we don't propose changes to the comments in this version. Likely we'll come back to the board with additional changes. But so we ask that you approve the regulations as proposed here today.
So moved.
Second.
The women fight back. You know, you might notice, by the way, I was just looking around, that we have a majority of women on this board for the first time.
In a while.
So, good for that. Yeah. Okay, is there any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? Okay, motion carries. Moving right along. We're going to skip now to item 2.6, the board resolution declaring undocumented student action week. Vice Chancellor Paul Feast.
Good afternoon. This resolution establishes October 14th through 18th as Undocumented Student Action Week. During this time, we put an extra emphasis on supporting undocumented students, expressing our unwavering support for them, sharing best practices for assisting them, and also engaging in legislative advocacy for policy changes to help them achieve their highest potential. We're fortunate to have several committed partners in this effort, the Community College League of California, the Student Senate, Immigrants Rising, the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, the Foundation for California Community Colleges. I'm now going to turn it over to Alonso Garcia from the Foundation. Mr. Garcia has been deeply involved in planning the activities for next month.
Hi, thank you for allowing us to present to the board this afternoon. So since the passage of AB 540, the California Community College Office has continuously demonstrated its ongoing support of undocumented students. Following the 2017 announcement of the rescission of Daca, the Chancellor's Office swiftly passed a resolution in support of undocumented students and held Daca Advocacy Week. This Advocacy Week was later expanded in 2018 with participation from 110 colleges. This year, Student Action Week will be held the third week of October, 14th through the 18th, and the Chancellor's Office is committed to declaring this an annual effort. If you recall, at May's Board of Governors meeting, we shared the findings and recommendations from the Dreamers Project, a landscape analysis done by the Foundation and Immigrants Rising. By declaring Undocumented Student Action Week, the third week in October this year and annually going forward, the Chancellor's Office and the Board of Governors is directly fulfilling a recommendation in the Dreamers Project report. Earlier this year, the Chancellor's Office again demonstrated its ongoing support by allocating funding to create a training module for the Vision Resource Center. The training module will provide an understanding of terms, laws, regulations, as well as promising practices to support undocumented students in the community college system. And I'm happy to announce that it will be released in time for Action Week. Action Week this year is supported by statewide efforts from the California Community College Chancellor's Office, the Community College League of California, the Foundation for California Community Colleges, Immigrants Rising, and the Student Senate for California Community Colleges. This year, the partners are providing colleges with a framework of suggested events, such as meeting with your local elected officials, hosting a town hall meeting, hosting a viewing party for the webinars. This year, there'll be 10 webinars, 2 each day, one for educators and one for student-centered, with topics that directly address the Dreamers Project recommendations, such as access to legal services, financial aid and support, access to mental health services, and ongoing immigration legal services. We are encouraging students, faculty, and staff, and college leaders to participate in this Action Week activities and to incorporate some of these suggestions into their Action Week efforts. On behalf of the Foundation for California Community Colleges and other Action Week partners, we stand in support of our undocumented students and are proud to collaborate with the Chancellor's Office and the Board of Governors in this important advocacy and support effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Perry.
Thank you for this. I have one wordsmith. I think in the fifth whereas, in the resolution, I think it should be immigrant singular, I think. And then I believe the Foundation for Community Colleges was part of this, and you mentioned it verbally, but it might be a good idea to add it to the sixth whereas, because I do believe they played a big role in this.
Thank you, we'll take that back.
And then just to stir up trouble early, because it's not even 2 o'clock. I like this term, and I think I'm opening a Pandora's box. Sorry, Paul. But when I just want to know what you think of when you say we're urging congressional members to uphold California values. I know I agree and espouse them. I thought it was such an interesting term. It's in the last bullet on page 41. And if you want to answer that later, because it's a Pandora's box, feel free.
Yeah, well,
it just struck me as such an interesting term.
We'll look into that and we'll get back to you.
Okay. Fair answer.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It's great to see that this is something that has already been started and will be something that you all are hoping to do annually. As someone that was very involved in the implementation of the DACA program at the federal level, I'm also very mindful of the upcoming litigation before the Supreme Court in November, on November 12th, and I'm just curious if you all are at all thinking about, to the extent that you can, lifting up the voices with that in mind. And there's a lot of confusion, obviously, out there in the community about where DACA's status is right now, and making sure students really have a full understanding of what is still available to them, and what is before the Supreme Court. Just curious if you're thinking at all about that.
We are thinking about that, but I will bring your recommendations back to the Action Week partners, and we'll collaborate a little bit further and come up with a strong game plan for it.
Okay, do we have a motion with Member Perry's edit? Or is there another comment?
Just a question. I'm curious to know if how, if at all, we're partnering with local immigrant rights organizations and how we are engaging them in helping to amplify the message, or even other stakeholders and partners would support. I know in the LA Basin, we're doing a huge college and career convention with Univision, and it's a great opportunity to underscore the message.
Thank you. We are providing colleges with a framework and letting them really mold their week to fit the needs of each of the colleges.
Okay, do we have a motion with Member Perry's edit?
Moved.
Ooh,
That was a tie.
Zaragoza and Aguinaldo. Okay, there's a public comment? Mr. Galizio?
Yes. Mr. Galizio, you're welcome to speak on this issue.
Thank you for your patience. Larry Galizio, Community College League. And I just wanted to make sure that there was an awareness, some of the materials that are available to districts for undocumented, and thank you for your partnership. We have very able leadership at the trustee board level. Our president, Linda Waugh, is here, and our CEO board, Joe Wise, and they wanted to make sure, number one, that we were at the table, and we're very proud to support this effort with the Chancellor's Office and so many partners. This is the kind of collective action that, I don't know about California values, but certainly California higher education leaders see higher education and opportunity as an inclusive process and want to offer that. I just want to make sure that there was an awareness that at the League website, there are materials and resources available for all of the colleges and districts and any other advocacy groups in partnership. In addition to weekly planning meetings, as had been mentioned, we have templates of advocacy talking points, phone banking, scripts, a federal advocacy letter, and then also we've drafted some resolutions for districts, press release templates, call to action poster, and logo and social media graphics. So kind of a toolkit and means for districts and those at districts and colleges to have access to support this effort.
Okay, we have another comment?
But before we do, for the colleges that for that kit, are you sort of disseminating that out through email and other means?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Debbie Klein.
Hi again. This entrance from stage left is very dramatic. So sorry, just getting used to that. I just wanted to say briefly that FAC is proud to have been sponsors of this event in the past, and we look forward to supporting this week of action this year as well as in the future. And we wanted to commend and thank the Chancellor's Office for their leadership on these important issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Are there any other board comments? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. On to item 2.7. Oh, it was Zaragoza and Aguinaldo. So the next is item 2.7, proposed amendments to board procedures and standing orders. Our General Counsel, Mark LaForestier.
Mr. President, point of order.
Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry.
We're wondering what happened to item 2.5.
Oh, it was postponed because they're not prepared to present it at the moment.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry.
President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the board, good afternoon. Mark DeForestier, General Counsel, here to present to you another in the long list of revisions that we've made to the board procedures and standing orders over the last several months. And for the new board members, this is sort of an ongoing effort to update our procedures and standing orders. And in this instance, we are proposing to update the standards of conduct. This was an important item for President Epstein. And we went through a process of looking at our existing standards of conduct. You'll see from your materials that we were operating under a document from 1966, which was not easy to find. And so it was essentially a restatement of what is now in the Political Reform Act, but didn't address any of the other conduct issues that you see in the proposal today. So this proposal governs ethics laws, the commitment of time and effort of board members to the board and to each other, and commitments to students. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have about this.
Okay, Member Costa?
I have two comments, really. Under 4 on page 47, the second part, I don't think that that sentence is appropriate. It says members shall support the majority decisions of the board. And although we are a plurality, everybody should maintain their individual right to disagree with the majority decision. I think the term should be members shall abide by the majority decision, but it doesn't mean that individually our support should be changed or different because we lost on a vote. And then on page 48 under 1, and I'm certainly not speaking to the veracity of our current leadership. However, we lack a process if there is a complaint against the president or the vice president. So there needs to be an alternative process for if they have an issue to be investigated. And I don't know what's appropriate or what other districts do, but we need to have a separate process since they wouldn't be able to preside over it.
You want to respond to that?
I think that the I have certainly no objection to a change to abide by in paragraph 4. I think that's sort of the essence of what we mean by support. So if that's a change that the board wants to make, I think that makes perfect sense. And then in terms of, that's a good point with respect to a process to address a breach by the president. It seems like the obvious thing to do would be to approach the vice president and have the vice president appoint an additional member of the board to conduct a review of an allegation. If that's something that is acceptable to the board, we can make an amendment along those lines.
Yeah, we have an executive committee of the board that includes the immediate past president too,
Right.
so that might be the right.
That sounds like a good approach. So if that's the pleasure of the board, then we can make amendments to that effect and either bring them back next board meeting or have a motion that approves subject to an appropriate change.
Member Perigo.
I have a couple of questions about this, and I support Member Costa's comment on number 4, because I think for those of us in operations, that got a little muddy to me to think about that I may find myself as an academic senate member for my college being in opposition to something the board does as a result of my work on the Senate at my college. And I certainly would want to know, if the board made a decision that was not good for Member Haynes's district, that she would be free to speak on behalf of her constituents without that being a board conflict. And I think that those of us in operations may find ourselves in those positions from time to time where what's in the best interest of our district or of our constituents may not align always with what the board sees as the best interest of California as a whole. So I would support that idea of abide by, because I think it gets us out of that murkier water of shall support it.
I think it does open a question in terms of what abide by means. And does abiding by it allow for public statements in opposition to policies that have been adopted by the board? I think that may be what you're describing.
I am, because I'll just give you a more concrete example. So I'm the immediate past president at my campus, and I could find myself in a position of being a delegate for my college should our current president not be able to vote. If that were the case, I have to vote my constituents how my constituents want me to vote on any given resolution that might go before plenary, which may or may not be in opposition to something that the board has already decided. Maybe it's a resolution against a board movement. And I could see, again, the same sort of thing. And I do think that, in your comment about what does abide by mean, that we may need to clarify this. Because, again, I could see Member Haynes in the same position if she is representing a group of people who elected her, and she's representing people on this board. There could be certainly conflict there. Also,
So would recusal be something that would be appropriate to talk about?
And here's where I kind of like the idea of maybe seeing this again, where we have a little bit of time to maybe iron this out, because I see in one of the stricken or struck, I'm not sure what the appropriate grammatical term would be, number 5, on that particular one, said this paragraph shall not apply to the actions of faculty, trustee, or student members of the Board of Governors taken in their capacity. And although that just relates to that one clause, I don't know where in here that might need to be massaged out more, because I even see the same potential problem in number 7, because in my job, I am on the side of it that implements, right? So this board may decide on guided pathways, but in my job as a faculty member, I have to implement. So I am on both sides of that particular idea that we're a policy-making board, but I'm also administering policy in my regular job. So again, I don't know in that particular case, like guided pathways, there would necessarily be a board conduct conflict.
Right.
But I'm just saying there's some murkier areas there that kind of make me go, okay, so would I have to recuse myself from working on any initiative that this board came up with in my campus if my campus had at that point it says that I can't be part of the process of administration of the policy. But I don't know if that's what we mean by that. So it just caught me as another area where, as a faculty member, I was trying to kind of decide, would I be able to engage in that, or would I be violating this conduct? And I have a few more like that, which I don't want to waste everybody's time with if we do agree. I mean, I can certainly go through them all, or suggest that maybe we can send forward some questions or maybe some clarifications and see it again as we kind of try to figure out how to make this clear so that we know what our roles are and that we know where those lines are and that we're not crossing them, so that we can be good board members.
Right. Well, we have been working on a policy that was adopted in 1966. So
right. I understand that
it
completely. I
wouldn't be the end of
do.
the
Trust
world
me,
to
I've been
know
at a
something
district that went through a whole bunch of them that were even older than that. So I understand where we're going.
If I can offer a compromise, I mean, I think there is an urgency here because we have had several complaints from the public regarding board members. And so we're operating with policies that don't allow us the appropriate mechanism to deal with concerns expressed by any part of the public against a particular board member or board members. So I think there is an urgency that we adopt a code of ethics. I think, what this particular item is trying to address is the issue of behaviors. Certainly, all of us in our different roles may disagree with the policy of the board, but I think what we're trying to ensure is that once the board adopts a policy, whatever that might be, the board agrees that that is the policy that we're moving forward with. I mean, certainly privately, we can all disagree on different parts of policy, but I think the important thing here is ensuring that once the board acts, the board carries out the policy as the board. So certainly if there are issues with some of the nuances, I think it might also be important, to your point, Member Perigo, that at some point perhaps the General Counsel can conduct a little bit of training on what is and is not within the purview of the board's roles, so that everyone hears it at the same time. While I agree that your situation is a little bit more nuanced because you're on campus, but that would be true of the classified member, that would be true of the student members.
And I am speaking on behalf of all of us who are on campuses that might find ourselves in these positions.
So I think it would be good for the entire board to hear that presentation all at once, because there's numerous different areas where those questions can come up. So I would hesitate having that done without all the board members having the opportunity to hear what those concerns might be. So I think whether that be the general counsel coming back and working through some of those issues with the board, but I think from my point of view, the sooner this board can adopt it, the sooner the general counsel can defend the actions of any board member going forward, because that is our primary concern. We've had a couple of instances where it was hard for us to respond because there's no specific board regulation that related to the behaviors that members of the public were concerned about.
So, to make sure I understand what you were just saying, do you think that Member Perigo should go through all of her issues now and we can decide it now, or that you
I would say,
I guess I don't feel the same sense of urgency that we need to adopt it at this meeting. And so I think though that it's not a terrible idea for you to raise all the issues that you had so that the board can hear them, and if somebody has a different opinion.
I'm happy to do that, and
Yeah.
I do feel also that, 4 of us have not been through our formal orientation, which might also provide some clarity to some of this, and I think that it would also give us an opportunity, if we just saw it at least one more time, to come back and have even maybe a different set of eyes. But I will go through just a couple of other, because most of mine sort of related to that. Number 4 was grabbed my attention, as well as number 7 on the word participating. On number 8, on page 48, I just wanted to ask for a clarification, because it says engaging in private business or professional activities, and then goes on to say would appear to be a conflict of interest or incompatibility between the member's private interests. So is this about me engaging in private and professional activities that only benefit me privately? Because engaging in professional activities also may have the same conflict that I have with some of these other, you see what I'm saying? It denotes private and professional activities, but then goes back down to if it's a conflict of interest with my private interests, which, fundamentally, of course, we shouldn't be profiting from these seats and so forth. I didn't know if that's kind of what I was getting at.
Right, so
That my business or my personal profiteering shouldn't happen as a matter of.
I wouldn't say profiteering, but yeah, your
Yeah.
business or personal interest would be potentially in conflict with an issue that comes before the board. That is something that needs to be avoided.
Okay, so then I would have a concern about the word professional activities as somebody in operations, because I will be engaged in professional activities that may have conflict with this board.
I think that it's good to note the issue. I think we can discuss how to deal with that offline, because if there is a conflict or a perceived conflict, that might be a concern.
Yeah, and I think that, again, we wear many hats. I'm a member of ASCCC as a faculty member, and they have their positions. I'm a member of my union, they have their positions. So there's a number of organizations that, and that links to number 10, members shall refrain from actions and involvements that might compromise the reputation or public standing of the board. Again, I don't know if I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here, but I thought, well, what if my union asked me to be a part of a rally or something like that? Would I be expected to refrain from those types of activities as being a board member? So that was a little bit unclear to me on that particular section.
Right, I don't think that this would be interpreted to restrain First Amendment activity.
Okay. I wanted to ask for a clarification on B1 of what the standard of preponderance of evidence means in this context. What is a preponderance of evidence? Is it that 51% of the time you can prove it's true, or is there a basic standard that's being used as a preponderance of evidence?
Yeah, that would be the standard.
The 51% standard,
right.
Okay, thank you. And then, and then I just to highlight it again, since we're on page 49 on number 5, the stricken portion. I think that if we could think about maybe somehow that we could denote that when we're doing something that's in our professional capacity as somebody who works on a college campus or in a district, that there would be certain consideration there, that it's not, because again, that's where the conflict comes in. And I've already tried to, I'd like to understand this better, because I've already had that where I've gone somewhere and have to say, look, I'm not here as board, I'm just a faculty member at this event, and to really try to make sure that people know what hat you're wearing. But I think that the clearer we can make this, the easier it is for us to abide by it, the cleaner it is if there's a complaint that comes forward, because we really understand where all of that is, and it protects the students, it protects the faculty, it protects the classified member and the board member that sit on this board.
Yeah, it's absolutely important that this be as clear as we can make it. The other reality is that conflict questions are always very fact-specific.
Yeah.
So it's difficult in the abstract to work through what may actually be a conflict, or one that might lend to a perception of conflict,
Yeah.
Without talking about what the facts actually are in a particular circumstance.
Right.
We have a couple of more comments. I just wanted to say, just while we're talking about this particular sentence here on the stricken number 5, I agree with Member Perigo that I think that sentence might be reinserted in places where it's causing conflict on the other issues.
In connection with the conflict question.
Yeah.
I think that would really satisfy my concerns, and I think it would make it very clear that if I'm acting on behalf of, with my faculty hat on, that, I'm not in conflict of the board's policy.
Member Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Well, first of all, I wanted to echo Member Perigo's comments. Definitely agree with that. As a student leader, I'm always going to fight for students, and sometimes I have to take off my Board of Governors hat to do that, and so it would be really good to have that kind of etched in stone. And then I want to echo Member Costa's comments about on page 48, number 1, the president and vice president, there's kind of no route about going about that. I just had a question for the general counsel. It seems like a reasonable person would assume the board in investigating kind of allegations like that wouldn't be the best body to do that. Why this instead of like a third party?
There may be circumstances where a third party would be appropriate if the president and vice president were in conflict. But for the typical situation, the idea is to keep this at the lowest possible level. There may be circumstances where a violation of the code of conduct would require us to refer something to a district attorney, for example. So hopefully that would never happen. But I mean, there are all kinds of possibilities that might flow from an allegation against a board member. But the purpose here is to conduct something along the lines of what might happen with an employee. So that's sort of the parallel. You're trying to handle something internally and resolve it at the lowest possible level, and that's the design of this provision.
Thank you.
Vice President Haynes.
Since my name was mentioned on multiple occasions,
This is not a democratic debate. This is not.
I raised my hand. So I serve on 4 boards, 3, and all of them have to do with community colleges. The CCC, in which I'm a member, Los Rios, of which I'm an elected person, and this board, and then Calbright. And let me just say, and I'm sure that there's some who know my positions on things will say an amen to this. I'm not always following the line of in support of everything or in opposition of things. I find myself trying to do something sometimes that are very nuanced, and then also things that I feel very strongly. And I particularly like where it says members shall vote according to their individual convictions, which allows for me a lot of latitude in which I can explain what my convictions are. I think we all can, and I think we all find ourselves in situations in which we come back to our constituency groups and say, this is why I did what I did, for good or for ill, and the trust is in the relationship of why we're doing what it is we're doing, and we're seeing a picture sometimes that others may not be seeing. So with that said, I do like the addition where appropriate of this paragraph shall not apply to actions of faculty trustee. It does allow some nuance in terms of the hat that we are wearing, or if we feel that we need to wear on a particular decision. This issue around, so let me just say, this issue around members shall, we have here support, but we are reviewing the issue or the wording abide by. I'm not certain of the nuance between the two, but let me just say that there are positions that that I've had to, there are a couple of issues where I've had to recuse myself, not here, but as a trustee, or I felt very, very strongly in a particular vote that I've taken. But I do know the cohesion that's necessary for boards is that everybody after that vote comes on board. Now, we can use the term abide, I'm not certain, but we really come on board, we come on to support the majority decision of the board. And we still may have feelings about that. We have to work through those. But I think it's very easy to pull boards apart relative to where we need to go. And so that's the only reason I think that language is there, so that once a decision is made by the body of the whole, that we move forward. We may work behind the scenes to massage it or whatever, but we move forward based on the decision of the body of the whole. So with that said, to the extent that the body of the whole feels that we need to take this back and work on it some more, I think we need to get a sense of that. Or is there a way to say, let's incorporate some of this and bring it back? I don't know what the next steps are, but we do need to move on this in a way, because we, in a particular, we were left with a very old process, and we felt we couldn't do anything. So that's not where we want to be when we have these issues that come before us.
And one approach would be to adopt this amendment as it is, with a commitment to come back to the board next meeting with amendments that will reflect the discussion that we've had today, and my commitment to talk to all of the members of the board who are affiliated with the community college system in other ways.
I don't know.
Can I offer a slight modification?
You may.
I think that we could put forward a motion that we approve in principle the creation of board procedures and standing orders concerning board member conduct, and then allow time to kind of work through some of these issues. I mean, my observation is that really throughout all of these, we just need something that basically says board members are prohibited from operating on behalf of the board in a manner inconsistent with actions taken by the board.
Yeah.
And then we all are able to maintain our individual ability or our campus roles to do something different. And it gets to this question of abide or support. I can't go out there as board member Acosta and present a board position that's separate than what the board as a majority has taken action on. And so I'm fine with putting it forward in principle, but I don't want to approve it as is, because I think it needs work. And maybe you can report back to us once we fine-tune kind of some of these issues.
Thanks. I actually don't see any point to approving something in principle. It's an action item. We might as well just bring it back for action at the next board meeting. You've gotten plenty of feedback.
Yep, good conversation, thank you.
And yeah, this has been very helpful. It's, I'd seen this before. I hadn't thought about it in certain ways that you guys have been helpful in revealing. I think we have a public comment as well.
Yes, John Stanskas. Oh, please come here. Spin the wheel.
The price
Jazz
is right. President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, Chancellor Oakley, members of the Board of Governors, good afternoon. My name is John Stanskas. I'm the President of the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges. And this is a really interesting process where I have to guess what you might say and fill out whether I want to make any comment or not. And I guessed wrong. You all covered all of it. I had some deep concerns about the nature of this board. Is a little bit different. What I read here looks like what I expect from most of my nonprofit training about a duty of inquiry, a duty of loyalty, and a duty of care is reflected here, but every board needs to make it their own. And when you have boards that have both representative groups as well as public members, sometimes there's a little blurriness between them. And boards need to figure out where those lines are. So I'm glad that looks like you're going to do that, and I would support you figuring that out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll put this over and bring it back next time.
Thank you.
Then we're going to skip again 2 more items, item 2.8 and 2.9, because of the inability of witnesses or of presenters to appear, and we're going to go on to first reading, item 3.1, the nomination of 2020 board officers, Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez.
You guys are on a roll. Must be that good leadership for our board. Item 3.1 is the nomination of 2020 board officers. So at this point in time, for your first reading, according to your standing orders, you may nominate a board president and a vice president. Until the November meeting, when you take action, you may also continue to nominate board members via email or in writing to Chancellor Oakley.
Thank you. So we'll open the floor for nominations for board president. Member Rawlings.
I'd like to nominate Tom Epstein for president.
I'll second that.
There's Member Perry, second. Okay, that's all we need. Any other nominations?
Gavel out, Tom, gavel out. Close the nomination.
No, any other nominations? No. Okay, now we need nominations for vice president. Member Zaragoza.
I would like to nominate Pamela Haynes for vice president.
I'll second. Second.
Whoops, who was second? I think it was Member Villa Lobos.
Didn't just forget my name, did you?
Pardon me?
You didn't just forget my name.
No, no. I'm just flustered with my electoral success here. Are there any other nominations for vice president? Okay, with that, that's what we have now. As Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez said, there is an opportunity for the next 2 months for anybody who changes their mind or thinks of somebody else to bring it up, and then we'll vote on this in November. In the very weird process that we follow here.
May I make a comment?
You may.
I just want to thank both you and Pam for being willing to take those leadership roles. I know you do a lot, and you have to be a lot of places and represent us in a lot of places, so thank you to you and to anyone else who may put their names in for being willing to serve.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to jump to a fun part of the meeting. We're going to go to item 4.1 and have a Vision for Success Spotlight of Riverside City College. And Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez is going to kick that off.
So President Epstein, for this item, I would like to invite Dr. Anderson, the president of Riverside City College, and his staff to join me.
Welcome, Dr. Anderson, again. I think we need another seat.
There's an extra.
Get a new seat. So you've spent the entire morning doing a tour of Riverside City College, but for this spotlight, we really wanted to feature guided pathways and the work that Riverside City College and Riverside Community College District has done to integrate guided pathways across all of their programs in career technical education. But before I hand it over to Dr. Anderson, I want to acknowledge Dr. Anderson and his staff, particularly Chip, for all of the work that they've done to host us here today. As you know, it takes a tremendous amount of work for us to have an off-site meeting once a year, and we cannot do it without the amazing college that has supported us throughout the last 9 months. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez. Members of the board, board president, and board vice president, thank you for this opportunity to present. As many of you heard this morning, we at Riverside City College have fully engaged in the Guided Pathways movement. We are one of the 20 lead colleges, and under the leadership of our Board of Trustees and our Chancellor, Dr. Isak, we are committed to the vision for success. One of the key aspects of the Guided Pathways that we'd like to frame for you today is the work that we're doing in our academic engagement centers. These centers bring together classified professionals, faculty, and administration, as well as student employees who are all committed to the same mission, getting students on track and keeping them on track so that they go on to achieve academic success and then economic and social mobility so that they can transform the communities from which they come. It's a team effort at RCC, like everything we do, as Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez just mentioned as well. Even this, your visit to the college is a team effort. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the members of our group. Going across from the far right, stage left, we have Dr. Mills, the Vice Chancellor. We have Monique Green, who's the faculty lead for our Guided Pathways. And then we have Vice President DeMemo, who is our Chief Planning and, what's your other? Chief Planning and Development Officer. Please.
All right, thank you so much for having us. All right, so at Riverside City College, our engagement history has really been based on the sense of home, which is generated by our Ujima and our both La Casa, both of our engagement centers. And Ujima, many of you know, means collective work and responsibility in Swahili. It began 16 years ago with the passion of 2 of our faculty members. It provides support and guidance for academic success and engagement. It fosters community. It strengthens students' relationships to their home communities with an African American cultural perspective. And they're a supportive space for African American students to feel connected or feel a sense of home. The same applies to our La Casa Engagement Center, Si Se Puede, yes you can. Strengthens students' relationships and ties to their home communities with a Latinx cultural perspective. Provides support and resources through counseling, workshops, lending of equipment and supplies, tutoring, motivational speakers, textbook, and Chicano literature lending. It is a supportive place for Latinx students to feel a sense of family and connection. So what does that mean for Riverside City College? We decided we're gonna take that basis or that sense of home and we're gonna grow it. So we have our academic engagement centers, which provides that support for all of our students. What we have here is our mission. What is our mission here for these academic engagement centers? And as you can see there, the academic engagement centers serve a diverse population of students throughout their educational journey by providing access to learning resources that foster student success. The centers provide community building and a sense of belonging within the students' identified instructional pathways and empowers them to be active participants in their education. So again, we took the Ujima and the La Casa idea and we said, let's build it, let's make it more, let's scale it up. So what we currently have, we have 5 different engagement centers currently on campus. We have one for our LHSS, or our Languages, Humanities, Social, and Behavioral Sciences. We have our career and technical education, which includes our advanced technical trades, business and information systems, and our education and teacher preparation divisions and departments. We have our Fine and Performing Arts Center, which is actually sharing space with our STEM Center right now. But as we build out our campus, they will have their own individual space, a place for their students to come and be connected. We have our Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math Center, our STEM Center. Many of you guys may have saw that on your tour today. And then we have our Nursing Engagement Center for our nursing or health-related sciences.
Good afternoon, Monique Green, Guided Pathways Coordinator, previously counseling faculty reassigned in this position. What I want to say is our academic engagement centers has fostered a lot of collaboration across our campus in regards to what Dr. Anderson said of building a sense of community, not only for our students, but also for our faculty, staff, and administrators to come and invite engagement with the students. So last year, we were looking at the redesign of our onboarding process and looking at a way to clarify the path and help students enter the path. We wanted to provide an opportunity to provide, at that time, we were saying inescapable services for students, but we didn't want to tell them it was inescapable. We coined the term student success teams by previous research from other colleges as well. So what we did was we looked at some programs that we had on campus, such as EOPS and TRIO, and looked at what was creating the success within those programs, what type of wraparound services were students being provided, and being able to scale that opportunity for all of our students incoming into Riverside City College. And so here we have the student success teams, where a group of individual faculty, staff, and administrators came together to say what is essential to building this team. So we came up with Center coordinator was the last position that we created in the end of the spring semester to kind of tie in all of the different roles within the student success team and mandate the daily duties and functions of the engagement center. We have our counseling faculty who have been instrumental in providing the support and curriculum of when to support the students, how are we going to support them. So they built a counseling curriculum. So at 15 units, what do we need to be doing with students? At 30 units, what should we be doing with students? And at 45 units, what type of resources do they also need to make sure that they're exiting and graduating and getting on the path or completing their goal. So our counseling faculty has completely redesigned and reimagined what their role is like at the community college level. So no longer are we just a general counseling department. We have been housed in these caseload management style platforms where every counselor has now been assigned a pathway or an engagement center to support those students when they're incoming into the Riverside City College. We also have faculty leads. So our faculty leads' primary role for 18-19 was to oversee the daily duties and functions of the engagement centers, but primarily to build our faculty advising component of our student success team. So bringing in faculty to host their office hours within the space, bringing in faculty to have workshops on career pathways and career trajectories for those students within those fields. So currently right now we are going to be building that for our 19-20 in terms of providing training and offering brown bag lunches on what it means to be inclusive in the classroom. What does it mean to have culturally relevant teaching pedagogy within the classroom? What does it mean in terms of increasing student engagement outside of the classroom as well? So those are just some brown bag opportunities that we will be hosting for our faculty advisors this year. Another key component of our student success team are educational advisors. And I just want to give it up for our educational advisors. They are our classified staff that work day in and day out in those engagement centers. They are the only people who are currently housed in the engagement center. So they are direct access and support for our students in terms of resources, shutting off the lights, turning on the lights every single day. And as you know, or originally, educational advisors were the only part of the team in the engagement center. And so if they were out sick or if they had to attend a meeting, then guess what? The engagement centers had to close. And so that's another beneficial part of having the student success team, that we no longer have to close those engagement centers, and we have full support from the time we open till the time we close. Also, our peer mentors, those are our paid student workers, and they are trained every summer to support our students. Our students love talking to one another and getting advice and support from each other. I think they actually like listening to them more than they like listening to us. So providing peer mentors with the support and the resources that they need to engage in fruitful conversation with their peers. And then last, our tutors as well. So determining what type of tutoring support needs to be housed in each of the different engagement centers. And as we know, that's different considering which different path our students are following. So I think I also covered all the engagement center services as well as I was talking about the roles of these student success teams within the center. And RCC Caring Campus. So first I would like to thank the Board of Governors and also the Chancellor's Office for recognizing the important role that our classified educators play in the lives of our students every day. For the most part, they are the first people that come in contact with the students. So being able to provide a welcoming, friendly support system for our students, we, with the Chancellor's Office, partnering with the Institute for Evidence-Based Change at a regional implementation level, Caring Campus has helped our classified staff reimagine what their role is in the Guided Pathways framework in terms of supporting our students. It could be as simple as, little clap over there, it could be as simple as our customer service. How do we work on our customer service? Thank you for calling, Michelle. I would like to go ahead and forward you over to X, Y, and Z that will help you with your financial aid documents. And so actually giving a name to the person that we're actually transferring to them on the phone, whether it's walking them over to another supportive service on campus and saying, these are the expectations that you'll get out of this service. And so we've started a referral form-based program this fall. For the fall of 18 and spring of 19, it was pretty much at a programmatic level in terms of how do we identify strategies in terms of to support our students. This year, fall 19 and spring 20, we're actually implementing some of those strategies. And so we have now, based on the coaching sessions that were provided by the IEBC, funded by the chancellor's office, we were able to develop now on campus a work group of classified professionals across campus, including facilities, that will support the redesign efforts and support our students moving forward. And those are called the Caring Campus Ambassadors.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Mills, Vice Chancellor, Educational Services and Strategic Planning. Norco College and Riverside City College were part of the 20 California Guided Pathways institutions. And as part of that, in November 2018, all 3 colleges of the Riverside Community College District participated in a Scaling Guided Pathways district-wide institute. During that institute, we came up with design principles for how we would scale this across all 3 colleges. All of our work is focused on eliminating remediation, shortening the time to completion, and equity is at the core. For Pillar 1, we're looking at consistency in terminology for things like meta majors, and consistency where appropriate for program mapping. For Pillar 2, we're looking at common onboarding, things such as career assessments. For Pillars 2 and 3, the use of technology district-wide for economies of scale and trying to be consistent so that there's less confusion for all of us, including students. We are using an online student planning tool. EduNav would be an example here. We are using, as you just heard, similar structures to what RCC is using and looking at similar ratios for how we will staff across the 3 colleges, those engagement centers. So when I say ratios, I mean ratios of counselors to students, ed advisors to students, peer mentors to students, faculty advisors to students. For Pillar 4, we're looking at centers for teaching excellence, apprenticeships, internship opportunities for students, and working closely with all of our partners, that being K-12, 4-year institutions, and business and industry. We wanted to show you just a couple of our data slides, of which we are very, very proud. In our 2019-2024 district strategic plan, one of our goals is to increase by at least 15% per year the number of associate degrees awarded, and similarly by at least 15% per year the number of certificates awarded. And what you'll see in each of these slides is that we have far exceeded those goals in the past couple years. And the other trend line that you see is if we were doing 20% over 5 years, you see we would be quite a bit below where we actually are. And we're seeing similar outcomes in our other measures. We're tracking all of these very closely in our revised plan. In addition to scaling guided pathways district-wide, we are scaling guided pathways across the Inland Empire. We have an IEGP consortium consisting of 13 colleges. Those are Antelope Valley, Barstow, Chaffee, Copper Mountain, Crafton Hills, College of the Desert, Mount San Jacinto, Moreno Valley College, Norco College, Palo Verde, Riverside City, San Bernardino Valley, and Victor Valley. This consortium planning began in spring 2018, led by a planning team consisting of members from Chaffee College, Norco College, and Riverside City College, those being 3 of the California 20 that I mentioned earlier, supported from the College Futures Foundation, and kicked off with a summit in March of 2019. The summit created a forum to establish a common understanding of guided pathways throughout the Inland Empire, to share strategies and best practices, and to lay the groundwork for a 5-year implementation plan via the consortium in partnership with Growing Inland Achievement. In terms of support for this continued work, We need continued funding of our Guided Pathways regional coordinators to support the efforts. Funding to support what you've heard about today in terms of what we're doing with Pillars 2 and 3, with the onboarding, the support centers, the academic support, the caseload strategies that we're using. And finally, policy changes and funding to support systems redesign to truly make our colleges student ready. And with that, happy to entertain questions. Thank you.
Thank you, that's great. I'll just offer one comment to begin with, is that as I've traveled around, I've been to a bundle of colleges, and I've always, frankly, been a little disappointed that colleges in the same district pursued different pathways to all different sorts of things. And it's really, really exciting to see how your district came together, and not only that, but it's trying to organize the whole region. And given your record of success, that's a really, really positive thing, and I applaud that. So that, open it up to others for questions. Okay. Member Parago.
Thank you for having us and showing us what you're working on. And as someone in operations, I know this is very challenging work to move a college forward in this way. I do have a question, because you sort of brought this up at the end, and I think this is something important for this board to hear and for us to think about as this work moves forward. Right now, we're operating with specific funding to do this work, and I know one of the challenges we've had at my college is the things that we know will probably make a dent in students' success and persistence, but that are not necessarily going to be sustainable if the funding is no longer there, especially under our constraints with the 50% law. So I'm just wondering if you have sort of thought your way through or have any idea of, if you didn't have specific guided pathway funding, how that might impact what you're doing here, or if you've been able to figure out how to make this sustainable without those funds.
Thank you for raising a question that indeed we do struggle with. We are perfectly aware that these so-called soft money can disappear at any moment, and we make provisions for that. But we just have to look at the deeper challenge, which of course is that 115 colleges are underfunded every day, and it's just becomes a matter of priorities. This is core work. This isn't superfluous. This isn't, the sprinkles on the cake. This is the core work that we do. So it will happen regardless of whether there is funding specified for it. There's no more important work than this. Having said that, we continue to ask our legislators to fund the community college system at a level adequate to provide the level of service that our students and our communities deserve. Specifically, we do look at combining and gaining efficiency by examining all our sources of soft money. That includes a number of federal grants, it includes the C program funding, and every time we get a grant, we look to combine it and make sure that it's aligned with our current funding so that nothing goes to waste. Every dollar of taxpayers' money is protected and, like I said, put to those core purposes. Does that answer your question?
It does, and again, mostly just want to make sure that everybody, everywhere, anyone who, all 5 people who are watching the live stream right now know that this is really important work and it needs to be funded, and we need to continue to keep our sights on what you're doing, where you're making gains, and how to continue to support that, and it's going to take money to do it. So just thank you for letting us know, but just want to highlight that point.
Member Aguinaldo.
If you wouldn't mind going back to the slide with the associate's degrees and your success in achieving over the Vision for Success goals, can you talk a little bit more about how you arrived at these phenomenal figures? If you break out AAS and ADT and then adjusted them so that they're comparable, do you achieve the same level of success? Is this a result of us not setting a high enough goal? Are you guys just that awesome? I mean, can we get a little bit more detail around the true shape of this curve?
So, as you heard, We started Guided Pathways actually quite a few years ago. I would say really around 2012, or even before, but definitely around that time frame. We had a program at Riverside City College called Completion Counts. And a lot of the components of completion counts are similar components to what you see in Guided Pathways. So we've had pieces in place, I think, all along that have helped us to achieve those success rates. We were quite flat for a while. We have also really beefed up our efforts to have students apply for their degrees, receive their degrees, let them know when they're close, you know, take these last few classes and you will achieve your degree. So I think those efforts have certainly, definitely contributed to what we see here across the district. These are our district-wide numbers.
Okay, Member Salazar?
I too would love to commend you on your regionalized approach to Guided Pathways. Oftentimes we know this goes beyond resources and more relationship driven. I'm just curious, what's your secret sauce?
I could probably say something to that. I'm fortunate enough to come from CTE. And in CTE, it's very majorly based on relationships. I think I have a big enough voice, I probably don't need the microphone. But it's really based on relationships. And so we were able to take the things that we do well in CTE and really institute it as a college-wide effort. And so when we talk to our fellow colleges, it's all of us having that conversation with our colleges and really fostering that relationship. The Inland Empire is really lucky. We have an amazing consortia of colleges that really talk well to one another. And I know that we are unique in what we do because not all colleges or consortia work that way. So we are very lucky. We have a lot of great leadership and the relationships are really strong. I think that's what makes it happen.
I'd say that if I may,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Board President Epstein. If I may, I think that we need to step back too and look at what the governor and his advisors have been saying, and then what this board has been saying as well. There are areas within the state that are consistent. We already have established that our community college system is consistently underfunded. Within the state, there are regions that have populations that match that of most states, most entire states. And these are areas that are consistently underfunded. Inland Southern California is one of them. We have more students who are in community colleges, more students who want to achieve their success, but fewer of them are. We have the lowest college attainment rates of any region in the state, and it's inexcusable. Our chancellor and our board, as well as Chaffey College, and then the other colleges who have joined the consortium, recognize that that data represents human lives, and we are committed to that change. So we're thrilled that we have a governor, and we're thrilled that we have a board of governors for our system who are committed to of course committed to the entire state, but really, here in Inland Southern California, the time is now.
Okay, Member Shaw.
Yeah, probably about, I guess over a year ago, the Chancellor's office created this African-American panel comprised of about 25 African-American leaders throughout the state. And so we've been looking at, strategies in regard to recruitment and retention. And the major thing that the idea, the notion that seems to keep particularly African-American students on the campuses and getting through the courses is this sense of community. Now, I saw you have La Casa and Ujima, and there are also Umoja programs throughout the state. But I'm curious as to how your engagement centers interface with those two organizations, and are the resources in La Casa and Ujima the same as the overall engagement centers?
Absolutely.
How does that work?
Yeah, we actually have probably a little bit more in our student support staff that comes in and works with UGMA and La Casa. But we also have ed advisors that we talked about, our other engagement centers. We have those planted inside of these centers as well. And all the ed advisors get together and they talk about how to streamline processes and streamline services for students. So it really provides that sense of home, that sense of community that you're talking about. And we couldn't have done it without the strong leadership of our faculty at Riverside, who have helped us and helped guided us in pulling together these other education centers, academic engagement centers. They really helped with that. So it is a very intertwined kind of conversation. These two centers led the way for us. And so we want to make sure that we're recreating that in our other engagement centers as well.
Thank you.
Member Fitzgerald.
Just a quick question for the panel. You mentioned that you had to rethink the role of counselors. In that comment, you mentioned counselors had to focus on a particular pathways. Does that mean they're assigned to a particular department or a particular AAT or program?
So I'll go ahead and take that question. Our 5 engagement centers also house instructional pathways underneath those divisions. It was just easier for us to talk about them as divisions. So under each of the engagement centers, if you note here, so like language, humanities, social, and behavioral sciences, there's actually 2 pathways that live underneath that engagement center home. So language and humanities and social behavioral sciences, and that's one of our biggest population of students that filter into our college. And so we have designated counselors who are assigned to language, humanities, and also social and behavioral sciences. We haven't figured out yet, still working on the technology of how do we sort students into those pathways and looking at the technology in terms of caseload. So right now it's just saying these are your 4 counselors that live in this engagement center.
Thank you. And I just wanted to echo my fellow board members and commend you. I think like touring this campus, the amount of resources you have available for students is really phenomenal. And you guys are doing a phenomenal job helping reform the system for the students. So thank you guys.
I believe that the chancellor has some comments he wants to make.
Yes, I just want to highlight a couple of things you said for the board, because these are issues that come up from time to time, and it's wonderful to see living examples of some of the changes that you're have recently experienced, some of the changes that are intentional, you're intentionally moving forward. So I want to highlight one thing that you mentioned and then make a comment about the resources. You mentioned ed advisors, education advisors. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to that? Because I think part of the challenge that many of us have in the system is the role of advisement for our students. And it's been a challenge, supporting the role of counselors, which we don't have enough in the system, but at the same time, trying to create an opportunity for more advisement for students. So how have you tackled that, and how did that lead to the creation of ed advisors?
So ed advisors have been around probably longer than I've been in the community college system at Riverside City College. I just want to talk a little bit about their role, and the term that we use at RCC is everyone's an educator. And so understanding that there's not enough counselors to support students in terms of advisement efforts is what type of advising needs to come from different areas. And so counseling took the lead of actually creating roles and responsibilities and saying, this is what an ed advisor does, this is what a counselor does, and this is what a faculty advisor does. And there's a lot of gray areas in there, but in terms of coming to the fact that we are all here to support students and any advisement that we can give them, counselors are dedicated to creating the educational career path for students, and educational advisors' role is clearly giving them the resources to support them through that educational journey.
So that brings me to my second point, which is on this question about funding for the work that you do. I mean, I think the point that you just made, and combined with some of the other work that you're doing, sort of gets to the heart of what we want colleges to do, which is use the Guided Pathways framework to figure out how to redesign how you're supporting your students. And that means looking at the various roles across campus and trying to figure out, is there a better way, given the resource constraints that you have, to serve the students that are here? So anything that we can do in the Chancellor's office to provide you the flexibility with either SEAS funding or any of the other resources that you receive, I'll be the first to agree that you need more resources. But As President Henderson said, we're going to serve these students regardless of whether or not we get one more penny of support. So how can we help you do that work? Creatively redesign your college to support the different roles that you're going to need to support students. So I just wanted to throw that out there because that is a fundamental challenge for every college. Given resource constraints, what can we do to help you with either flexibility, guidance, support to do the difficult work of redesigning your college?
Chancellor Oakley, your reputation for somebody who's willing to question the status quo is well known by all of us in this room. And you know very well that members of this college and district's executive staff are more than ready to ask anything of you.
Yes.
With that said, there really is still work to be done within the constraints that we have at the college. In other words, at this moment, there's nothing that we need to ask of this august board. It's more the work that we are continuing to do at the college, with, of course, as you agreed, with the proviso that what we really need is more base funding to provide the level of service that our students deserve. So no immediate action requested, but we'll be sure to let you know.
Vice President Haynes.
So I really appreciated your presentation. You didn't, or I didn't hear, and I'd like you to speak to your engagement at the high school level, especially as it relates to dual enrollment. There was some mention of it on the tour about trying to engage high school students earlier in the process. And to what extent are you doing it? To what extent is it a pathway that you can build upon? What do you foresee relative to those students who may not even be thinking about colleges for them, those who haven't even begun to explore what the opportunities could be? So if you could talk about this element of dual enrollment and those students, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. The one thing that we do have, like many community colleges, we do have the CCAP agreements in place, and we have developed quite a few pathways so far for our high schools to participate in. You have your general ed pathways, and you also have CTE pathways. And so we've done both. We have an amazing student services team that helps with the first part of what we do. So they're out in the high schools helping students get their applications in, completing financial aid, handling that part of it. Our faculty come in, our vice president of academic affairs and her plans with the faculty come in. They develop those pathways for students, really drawing attention to what they can be. And then we have our integrated academic support team that comes in and we provide library services, integrated tutoring. And so we have an entire plan for that. So our goal is to really close that gap. Our goal is to help you in the beginning, help you right through the middle, give you that extra support that you need, and get you into to college. We want to at least get you to as many units as possible for you to complete while you're still in high school, transition then to RCC, that's our choice, and then transition then into a four-year. And so we want them to know that college is for them. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of getting that word out and working with our high school partners, our K-12 partners.
And can you can you tell us the breadth of the number of students that you're able to, or high schools that you're able to engage? What's that number look like in terms of that engagement that are coming to you? I mean, you're one of the colleges that have been involved the longest. Mm-hmm. In terms of the original pathway. So I think you have a lot to teach us all about what that looks like, what the pitfalls may be, what the successes are. So,
well, if we can talk about the successes, I think what's nice is that it's opened the doors for our high school partners to really let us know, based on their population of students, is what their students really are looking for. I can bring them a degree in underwater basket weaving, and that's not necessarily what they want. Mm-hmm. And so it's working with our K-12 partners and really fostering those communication, the degree of communication that we have with them, so that we're really capturing the students where they are. Again, we talk about being college ready. I want to be ready for those students. Our institution wants to be ready. And so when we talk about successes, that really is a success. We have just recently gotten our CCAP agreements approved by our board, so it's a little bit longer to do, but Our biggest hurdles, I think, at this point are just recruiting those students. I think really getting that message out there that we are here and we are ready for you, and how can we assist you. And it's been really nice to be able to open up those conversations to include those CTE pathways, which are certificates. Not all students want to go and get a degree, and we need to be ready for that too. And so it's opening up and developing those pathways with that CTE lens as well, helping students get into that workforce and really meet the needs of our industry.
Member Grande?
I am particularly impressed with the information that was provided to us during the luncheon with the recent achievement of California's first ADN BSN concurrent enrollment program at the other end of the spectrum. So dual enrollment, getting them into your college, and then concurrent enrollment, keeping them on campus, but yet at the same time allowing them to have that transfer to the CSUs. With your other meta majors or engagement centers, where are we going next with this? Are we going to end up with a true university center on the RCC campus where students would be able to finish out their baccalaureates with the CSUs in different majors other than just the BSN?
I'm confident that Vice President DiMemo, who most recently was our Dean of our CTE, where that division has engaged in a couple of partnerships. We'll talk about it. I do want to say, though, that we aren't thinking necessarily in terms of a university center. I've worked at a college campus where there was a sign on the wall for the university center, and I got excited, and then when I turned the corner, there was a classroom. Oh. Classrooms are important, but let's not get in the business of, launching a center before we have something to put in it. But the content is exactly right, Member Grande. What we are looking to do is to have more and more of our students on these 2+2s, particularly because where we are, a lot of our students and who our students are, a lot of them are place-bound. They would prefer to stay here. And recognizing that we want to be able to bring as many of those classes to the campus as possible. Space is a constraint. That's why we're pleased that the efforts are leading to more bonds being, bringing to the voters and more funds coming through Sacramento for the colleges to build. But space available and the initiative of our faculty to cooperate with our four-year institutions and bring more of those 2+2s is exactly the direction we're going in. And for a couple of concrete examples, Vice President.
Concrete examples, oh my concrete. One of the things that we did do in CTE, which was something that it helped with our relationship with UCR, which is right here down the street. We had their Department of Chemistry call us and say, you know what, a lot of our students would like to start their own business. They want to be entrepreneurs, but they can't afford to go through the School of Business to get the entrepreneurship degree, so can you help? We said, absolutely, we're it for you. So we developed a number of non-credit pathways that provide entrepreneurship types of activities, how to, from how to file your taxes to how to become a business and how do you market that. And so we've been able to work with UCR to provide their students those pathways, a couple weekends on the side, and get them exactly what they need. So it absolutely helps foster that relationship, not necessarily in the 2+2, but it does provide that support, which is what we're supposed to be doing. And so when it comes to concrete examples, that's pretty much the coolest one I can think of right now.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I just want to wrap this up by saying, this board and our chancellor has fought pretty hard for this student-centered funding formula. And the point behind it is to reward programs like yours that are doing the right thing and getting degrees and certificates successfully and more quickly and in higher numbers. And we will continue to advocate to try and implement this formula in the way that it was intended to reward districts like yours. So, thanks. And we're going to take a break now and